Yes, sir.
Check. One. There we go. Now, if I see you falling asleep, I can get really loud. Well, welcome once again to a new year of teachers training. Good to see you all. And okay, sorry we started a few minutes late, but as you know, sometimes life happens. And that was me, and that was today for sure. That's all right. That's all right.
For a good reason.
Sorry?
For a good reason.
Yes, exactly. Yeah, we are going to take Daniel tomorrow morning to get his passport renewed. So we have an appointment at 8:45. So we'll probably get there between 8:20 and 8:30 just to get there early. So pray everything goes smoothly. I have to ask them questions about my passport, which I also have to get renewed. And my new driver's license, which I have to get renewed also in Florida. So lots of different things going on. So please pray for all that it goes smoothly, because sometimes it takes a while for those to do that. So, and we also need to go to Singapore the next few months to pick up Mequan's new ID if we can. So lots of stuff taking place with IDs and passports and all this other stuff. Fun things. All right, well, let's go ahead and start a prayer, and then we will jump right in. Gracious Father and God, we thank you for today. Thank you for your mercy, for your grace. Thank you, Lord, for everybody who is here. And pray, Lord, for your help, for your guidance today as we learn about learning styles. And teach us, Lord, and help us to be able to teach others and reach others better. So, Lord, we lift up this time, and I pray for everyone here for whatever prayer requests, whatever burdens someone has. I pray for your intervention. Pray for your help, for your comfort, your provision, and your direction as well. And we commit our time to you in the mighty name of Jesus. Amen. All right. Now, was there ever a teacher that inspired you when you were going to school? So you raise your hand if there was. Was it? Great. What were some things that made this teacher special? Why?
Because she took time to teach me, a person who had not so much interest with the words, but interest with the posters. And she took time with telling me that in a story format to use those posters before she taught all the other lessons. And later on in my life, I found out that was all from the Bible.
Anybody else? Who else?
So even though I was naughty at school, this teacher
Active.
took my
Active.
yeah, I was active.
Yes.
Active in school.
And then he took the time to he took his own time to discipline us and guide us to our studies where we were lacking specifically person.
Good. So he helped you in your studies then.
Yeah.
Good. Anybody over here? How about over here? Yeah, right.
Geography teacher
Ah.
in high school. He had a good way of describing things. He was interesting to listen to, and his tone of voice was always very engaging.
Nice. So many of us have a teacher or even teachers. We can look back and say, oh, wow, I'm so glad I was in their class. I learned so much. Sometimes they will help us with a subject. Sometimes they actually will help us through a difficult time. That's something else too. And sometimes they show us a different perspective than what we were used to. And we appreciate that. We think, oh, I never thought of that. I never looked at it that way. And we learned from them. And that's what we remember. We remember what we learned from them. And one thing that sometimes is included is that they connected to your learning style. That's another factor too. Now, when I say learning style, what do I mean? What is a learning style? You can use your notes, you can cheat, it's okay. Open note test.
Visual, somebody audio learner,
okay.
or a visual learner.
Yeah.
The way you receive and process information at the rate.
That's very good. Yes. Because people do receive and process information differently. And we learn at different rates too. Some people learn like this. They're like a sponge. A little kid, they learn quickly. usually. But others, it takes a little bit more time. You have to tell them 100 times before they get it. And that includes kids too, by the way. And this is connected to personality, but it's also about how we hear and process information in our heads. Before we actually get into this, I want to do an activity. And in your seat, you have one of these. And what is your learning style? And you have your name and different things on here. And I want you to go through this. I'll give you a few minutes to fill that out. Look at everything first, and then go through and just make little check marks or X's or whatever you want to on one side or both sides of the paper. I'll give you a few minutes. Give you a couple more minutes. I can see the wheels in your head turning. And be aware, you may be more than one style too.
Oh, yeah.
You may be a mixture. So it's not necessarily one and only one. I'm a mixture of a few different things. So give me another minute or so. And remember, there are two sides too. Just to remind you, there are two sides. I'll give you about one more minute. One more minute. "45 seconds."
Oh, I'm so
"35 seconds."
Hindi lang. Anuhan. Hindi kung ano yung
If you're finished, go back and look at it and kind of add them up and think about how well that suits you. 22 seconds.
For categories or
The whole thing. The whole thing, everything. Yeah. Look for each one. Look at each one.
so for example, it's visual count for the left one only.
Look at all of them to see if maybe a mixture of styles.
Mix. Okay.
Many people are a mixture of styles. Okay, 12 more seconds. Five. One. I'm going slow.
Very slow.
All right. Now you can still keep looking. So for those who are finished, what did you learn about yourself? What style are you?
Mix.
I hear a few things. See some people counting up numbers. What'd you learn?
But I like to say it visually and text-based.
Visually and text-based, okay. Who else? Reflective and visual, okay. Anybody else?
I like to reflect in nature.
Like to reflect in nature, okay. So reflective and natural, okay. Who else? Audio? Anybody musical, audio? Music, oh really? Music, visual, and rational. Oh, relational, oh wow, okay. Who else? Anybody else? Now here's the next question. Did you already know this about yourself? Or is this something that you just learned? Am I just learning? Just learned? So who just learned this for the first time? Oh, a lot of people. So does this kind of help explain why you did so well in some classes in school, and some classes maybe not so well? This kind of activity can help us learn how we learn so that we can better stretch ourselves to maybe try something new or something different. So what we're going to do next, we're going to go through these styles of learning and then see what they mean, first of all, and then go back and then see how do we teach each one of these? How can we reach each one? First of all, visual, images. This is a pretty obvious one. Visual learners learn through images, graphics, pictures, charts, presentations, illustrations of ideas. They actually recognize words by sight and remember faces, but forget names. That's me. I'm good with faces, but I am horrible with names. That's something I'm working on this year. Lord, help me to do that, please, so I can remember people's names. They also like to take notes and make lists. Who's a list maker? Yep. Yeah, me too. Usually, those who are very visual people have vivid imaginations. They also express emotion through facial expressions. And they often can assess what can be changed or to improve appearances. They walk into a room, okay, that needs to be fixed, that needs to be changed, let's move that over there. Okay, that's better. Good interior designers. They also need time to process things. They want to see something, they want to be able to connect it with what they already know. And they often say, show me. Show me how to do this. Show me how that connects. Visual learners draw during a class. At the end, I can go around and see who drew on their paper, and I can tell you're probably a visual learner. We call it doodling. And that's fine. That's fine. Some people can listen better while they're drawing or doing something too. So there's the visual learners. They learn through images. Second, auditory, and I would include listening and musical in this too. Auditory or verbal or musical learners, they absorb information through what is said, reading out loud, and listening. Some do learn through music, through beat or rhythm. This individual usually doesn't take notes, but they can still remember because they hear it. They ask questions. They repeat what they hear so they can remember it more too. You ever notice how kids do that?
Yes.
Why do you think they learn so much and so quickly? Because they hear it and then they verbalize it and they hear it again and they're saying it. They often remember things they hear more than what they see, which can be a challenge sometimes. They move their lips as they talk about situations and problems in their mind. You ever see people doing that? They're working through something. Now, I'm not going to say how many of you do it because I don't want to embarrass anyone. I do that sometimes. I have the best conversations with myself, except when I argue with myself, and then I lose. It's really strange. They remember names by verbal repetition, but they forget faces because they're not visual. They're not visual. They also express emotion through verbal changes in tone, volume, and pitch. How are you? Fine. An auditory learner often talks to others during class because they can't wait to talk. They're not afraid to speak up. They're not afraid to ask questions. They're not afraid to let their ideas be known, and they are good at explaining themselves, generally speaking. They can be talkative and still listen at the same time. They use phrases like, tell me, or let's talk about that. Let's discuss that. Okay, so any questions so far? At least two. Is it falling into place? Does it make sense? Okay. Number 3, text-based. This is reading and writing. Reading and writing. They're word-based. They absorb information best by reading and writing. They read a lot, they write a lot, and they believe, generally speaking, that the written word is more powerful than a spoken word or an abstract idea or a picture. They're good at writing essays, writing books, writing articles, blogs even, and more. And these individuals take lots of notes, and they explain their thoughts best how? Through writing. Through writing. They may not do as well with visuals. They may not do as well with verbal discussions. They need to see something in writing. Okay, make sense? All right, next. Kinesthetic. Everybody say kinesthetic.
Kinesthetic.
That's a hard word. This is hands-on. This is movement. These are also known as physical learners. They learn best by experiencing something, by interacting with what is taught through an activity in a lesson. Many kids, of course, learn this way. They want to learn by doing. They learn by touching, by being active. Now, they don't do well with abstract ideas. They don't do well with just hearing. They have to touch something. They have to do something. Because those ideas and discussions can't be felt. They can't be touched. They say, let me try. Usually these individuals will attack problems physically. Also impulsively without thinking about what's going on. I see this every day. And they like trying things out. They like moving things and trying things, feeling things. And often they don't pay attention to visual presentations. It bores them to death. Because they can't touch it. They can also be easily distracted. Squirrel. Now, when they're bored, they're going to fidget. They find reasons to move. They like to dance a lot of times too. Whether they're good at it or not, they still like to dance. When they're happy, they jump for joy. When they're angry, they stomp away. And they can be very dramatic. They can use their body to explain themselves, to, I hurt myself, very dramatic. Because they can't sit still. And here's part of the problem. This is something for kids also. If they concentrate on sitting still, they can't learn. Why is that? Because all of their focus is doing this, and they don't hear what they're told. Again, children generally are kinesthetic learners because that's how they learn. That's how they grow. That's why they're touching everything in the world. That's why they put the stuff in their mouth when they're kids. That's why I have to say, stop doing that. Usually, somebody who's a kinesthetic learner, particularly a child, you have to say, keep your hands to yourself. Stop touching that. Why do you touch everything? Does that make sense? Everybody understand that one? Okay, all right, next, number 5. This is the logical, this is the analytical learner. He or she usually thinks and processes information and tries to connect it with the previously learned information also. They're good at problem solving. They like difficult tasks because they want to say, okay, what can we fix? Math may be something natural to these individuals. They may not answer a question right away. Why? Because they're thinking about it. They have to think through what's presented. They love to debate. You know somebody like that? He or she may be a logical learner.
Yep.
They like to debate because it makes them think. And they look for causes and patterns to understand the new information they are presented. This helps them process these things and put a structure in place that helps them put everything where it needs to be. They do well with facts, statistics, lists, also problem solving. Logical learners usually say, well, let me think about that before I make a decision. They like to learn in sequential order, step 1, step 2, step 3, and so on. They often ask why or how. How does that work? How can we do this? Why does that? And they like structure in a class, and they usually find it difficult to engage if there's an unstructured activity. Okay, any questions on that one? All right. Number 6, relational. This also is called interpersonal or social interaction. They love to socialize. They love talking to others and working in groups, and are usually more comfortable in a group interaction. They also learn best in a group. And this is something that, as you can see highlighted here, interaction is critical for somebody who is social to learn. He or she's focused on relationships, and they can sense what others feel, and they can make friends very easily. They're a people person. A people person. And this goes from, 4 years old to 54 years old or 84 years old. It doesn't matter your age. Next. And this is what some of you mentioned, the reflective person. They like to study alone. This is the exact opposite of the relational person. They like solitude. They have good self-motivation to learn by themselves, but they may not do well in a group activity. It makes them feel a little bit awkward in that situation. Now, for some, being around a lot of people can actually drain their energy if they're in a big group in an extended period of time. So be aware of that. This individual goes to the library, to a coffee shop, to think, to write notes, to read, whatever. They're very self-aware of their feelings and their thoughts. And they think about their behavior, and they need a quiet place for personal contemplation. They don't do well in busyness. It stresses them out a lot of times. Okay, any questions on that one? Okay, we got one more here. And this is the natural, or nature. I forgot to fix this part, but it should be nature. He or she enjoys being outside. They like being in the natural environment, and they learn better outside. It can actually be calming to them, to hear the wind blowing and the leaves rustling and the birds. It can be calming to them.
That's true, bro.
Sound effects. That's the only thing you're going to remember from this passage. He knows how to make bird noises. That's fine. A lot of times they love animals because animals are outside. They love agriculture, landscaping, geology, astronomy, things like that. Now, sometimes an individual who is a natural person can just sit by a window, like with a cat or a dog or something, look outside, and it makes them feel calmer. It helps them to focus. Now, when it comes to a Christian, he or she may emphasize God's creation. That's possible too. They enjoy the beauty of the world and the universe. And you know what? They want to learn about the bugs and the rocks and the plants. And for this individual, their 5 senses are very important. It's not just touching, but it's seeing it, it's thinking about it, it's also touching it. That's what the natural individual likes to do. Now, these are the eight learning styles. And understanding this is good for you as an individual. If you're married, it's good for your spouse too. Because maybe you can think back, okay, now I realize why we may have not been communicating as well. Good for your kids, your family, grandkids. And if you're a teacher, this is really helpful for your students. If you're a manager, for example, those whom you lead are going to process information differently than you do. If you're a teacher, you have a variety of styles in your class. Just like here, there's a variety of styles different than me. If you're a parent, more than likely your kids have a different learning style than you do. And that can cause some big frustration. If you care for children at all, this is something that can help you too. In addition, this helps us teach God's Word. To better communicate, we need to observe our students. So pay attention to what they say. Pay attention to how they respond in the lesson. If they ask a lot of questions, if they do this, again, some may have a mixture, or one style may be obvious. Give you an example here. In your class, if somebody is always asking questions, always making comments, he or she may be what? I can't hear what? Auditory. An auditory learner, yes. Help me to understand, what is this, what is this, what is that, how does that work? Even kids can do this. If someone takes a lot of notes, what do you think is his or her learning style? Text-based. Yep. Now, we do need to be aware, though, and I think this is important, that the world is becoming more visual. Why is that? Media. This is impacting learning styles around the world, and people are becoming more visual as time goes on, so be aware of that as you're doing this. And also, I have some extra sheets up here. Take one of these for your class. Feel free to, this is something I created, based upon a lot of other different resources. So feel free to take that, use it in your class. Now, if you're working with little kids, they're going to draw on it and make paper airplanes and stuff like that. But for even a little bit older kids, some of them who can read, this may be very helpful for them. And you can help them through it, maybe just as a fun activity in a class. So any questions before we go on? Any questions? Yeah?
So it sounds like the learning style can change. When does it really develop more? Like in the first 5 years or something like that? And then how easy is it to change it through their life?
I would say it's probably developed the first 6 years of the first 6 years of their life, generally speaking. It could be modified if somebody is constantly shown or is around something else. They could probably change some of that. But because it's connected to personality, some of that's going to be retained with them the rest of their life, at least to a point. Now they can change as they get older, as their thinking changes, as they maybe get more responsibilities. They realize, hey, this isn't working, I've got to change. So then some of those things can change, but there's still probably going to be that 1 or 2, maybe 3 mixture where they're still going to be focused on. So any other questions? Good. Anything else? All right. Sorry the battery died on that, by the way. Okay, now here comes the next one. How do you teach each style? Okay, so first of all, visual. What would you do to teach a visual learner? What are some things you do?
Lots of illustrations.
Pictures, illustrations, posters, what else? Video, yep, what else? What else? Diagrams, yes. Charts. Anything that's visual. Because a visual learner is easily distracted by visual disorder.
If something doesn't fit, it's jarring to them. Movement can really kind of mess up their focus too. He or she prefers a neat, meticulous environment. If you got a messy classroom to a visual learner, it's going to drive them crazy. They may not talk a lot. They may become impatient when they must listen for a long period of time, when they just sit there with no visuals. They're like this. I see a few of you doing that, by the way. No. So one thing you could do too is to break things up. That's why I use visuals. I use other things too. Here's some other things you can do. Give handouts. And as was mentioned, create charts, infographics, pictures to illustrate a point. Use graphics, cartoons even, particularly if you're working with kids. Use cartoons. Flashcards, flowcharts, maps. Write on a whiteboard, write on the touchscreen monitor. Anything visual will help these individuals. Again, use videos, that was mentioned. Color-coded highlights. Something else you can do too. That helps to organize and to emphasize, main point or an idea. He or she needs to observe things closely. So one thing you can do is be careful not to go too fast with your visuals. So if you do have a lot of visuals, make sure you have it up a long enough time for them to see it and process it and think about it. They also may be able to express themselves through drawing or pictures. You think only kids do that well. If an adult is a visual learner, maybe he or she would like to draw something one day. You're somebody who designs things. My bachelor was in fine arts, technical theater. I drew a lot. I had to. That was part of the course. I enjoy drawing. I enjoy that. Part of me is visual. So you can do this. Visual games are helpful. Scrabble, for example. Word search, crossword puzzles. Find the Bible word or something like that. Something else you can do is allow them to read and look at the illustrations. Let's say you're studying a parable of Jesus, right? Go online, find a word search that goes with your lesson. Again, this could be for kids or adults too. Nothing wrong with that. And this way they can find these things, they can think about it. It doesn't have to be perfect, or you can create one yourself if you have the time. So anything visual will help. Anybody else have any ideas or thoughts about this before you want? Okay, auditory. What would you do for an auditory learner? What are some things you could do? Sorry? Play some music. When? Yeah. Before class, during class, but not too loud. Or even at the end of class too. Okay, what else? Or if you have an activity, by the way, if you have music going on during the activity. What else could you do? Audio.
Listen to a short story.
Listen to a short story. An audio Bible, for example, is great. What else?
Instructions or points that you're trying to make should be repeated multiple times.
Yeah, repeated multiple times. Yep. Good. What else? Sorry? Ask questions. Great. So, all those are good. So provide auditory learners with opportunities to listen, or reading out loud, oral reading. Again, music, recorded presentations, video with good audio. If somebody doesn't have good audio, not the best thing to use. Ask questions. Get people talking. That's something else to do. A group discussion is a great way to do it too. Dramatic presentation, role playing is another good one. Reading out loud. Not just a text, but the instructions too. If you do a soft group activity, as was mentioned, play some soft music. Maybe do something with a rhythm to it.
All right, everybody, get your paper and a pen and let's try this. Move it to the left and move it to the right. Let's tap your toes.
Yeah, see?
Yeah, I'm
So like that.
audio long.
And that, you We think only kids, no, adults too can do this. And it can be something fun and different to do also in the class. And it will reach that style of learning. Play music when people arrive. And if there are any musical people in the class, maybe bring a musical instrument.
Yes.
A drum or a harmonica or a guitar or something like that. Use it during an activity. Now, if you work with only kids, you know what's going to happen if you do that. So I would say be careful of that. But remember, auditorium learners shouldn't stay quiet for a long time. In many ways, they can't, because they're just like you just see this thing that just want to explode with words or phrases or music or something like that. They're just like, give me a chance to talk, please. Something else you can do too is plan activities where they can talk. Very often, we want quiet. Stay quiet. Shh, quiet. Plan an activity where they can talk and move. Yeah. Use another one. Sing a Bible verse. Yeah. There's a lot of stuff online now that have a lot of kids' songs with musical Bible verses. Again, put a beat to the Bible reading. Again, use the dramatized, not just the audio, but the dramatized Bible. Some of those are really, really nicely done.
Like, I will obey the first time I'm told.
Yeah.
I will obey right away, never thinking why, never sighing why. I will obey right away. Something like that.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Or the principles too. Any other ideas about this before you want? All right, number 3. Text-based. What are some things you can do for a text-based learner? PowerPoint presentation. What else? Reading materials. What else? Now this could be in print or digital, by the way.
Write your own prayer.
Write your own prayer. There you go. What else?
Give out notes.
Yeah, I'm sorry.
Give out reading notes.
Give out reading notes. Yep, exactly. You can tell I'm partially text-based too. That's something I do. So to support the way reading and writing students learn best, ensure they have time to take notes. Make sure that they have extra time for reading, for comprehension. So include reading materials, include the writing assignments in the class, fill in the blanks, matching. Crossword puzzles, again, may be possible too. Ask students to write a summary of the class. Hey, what did you learn today? Take 5 minutes to write it down. Main points. Ask them to write a Bible story or a lesson in their own words. Let's say we're talking about Noah's Ark today. Everybody's like, okay, we've done this like 17,000 times. Here's what I want you to do. Write it in your own words. Ooh, that's new. Kind of fun. And it also helps you realize and learn what they think about and what they understand about that particular Bible verse or passage or topic. So it helps you as the teacher to learn about your students too. If they're old enough, play Bible detective. Okay, in this verse, what do you see? What does it say about this? Which verse are we talking about when it talks about this? Or you can do like a Bible drill. Right? I want everyone to go to Obadiah chapter 1. Who's going to get there first? Where'd you go? Use handouts, as was mentioned too. Okay, next. Kinesthetic. Movement, motion. What would you do? I see a few people doing this. Sorry, one more time. Drama. Yes. What else? Games. Yes. What else? Role play. What else? Yeah. Give them breaks. Yeah. So they can get up and walk around. That's good. That's good. Sorry? Let them dance.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, you're
Particularly the kids.
dance, okay, then you get
I love going by Senior's class when she's with the kids because they're dancing all over the place. It's great. Sorry?
Give them a trade.
Yeah. Yep.
Yeah.
So kinesthetic or tactile learners, remember, they use their senses, touching, hearing, all of them. As a class, make something together. Okay, you make this, you make this, you make this, you make this, and let's put it all together. Give objects to touch that connect to the lesson. Make lessons active by playing educational games, which was mentioned. Again, these folks cannot sit still very long, and they need frequent breaks or activities to keep them moving, to keep them doing something. So you got to get them moving. Use an activity to reinforce that lesson. Have them act out a part. There's that role play. Draw on a whiteboard. Here's part of the struggle. You have to bring abstract ideas into the real world to help the kinesthetic learners. Give an example. For children, you place words of the Bible on the floor and let the students step on each word in a sequence for the verse. In the beginning, God created the heavens and the earth. You can try it with adults too, but if you wanted to, that's up to you. Add signs or movements to each one. In the beginning, God, whatever you want to do. This is where you can use your imagination. When asking questions, incorporate a movement to the answer. This is yes. This is no. Whatever you want to do. You could do a place an A or a B on one side of the wall, and the C and D on the other side of the wall. Or true and false. All right? Everybody stand up. If this is true, I want you to go over here. If this is false, I want you to go over here. Now just be careful, particularly if the kids, they don't trample each other. So you're going from one side to the other. Or if you want to do it with the adults, make sure they don't trample each other either. Ask the question. And then have them move to the answer. Yep. So A over here, B over here, C over here, D over here, however you want to do it. And then tell everybody go back to the middle, and then use that. And use active ways to introduce a concept before transitioning to something quieter. Give me a couple of examples here. You could go outside. You could go outside to, weather permitting, of course, to illustrate something. Let's say you're teaching about evangelism. Festival Walk is right near where we are at this point. Go up on maybe the top level. Look down at all the people. These are the individuals who need Jesus. That way you're going somewhere, but there's also a visual too. And it's real life. If you're talking about creation, again, go outside. Oh, wait a second, sorry. I think I messed something up here. Oh, sorry. Right here. No, I'm sorry. And this works for nature too, by the way. Go outside, have the class touch the grass. Touch a tree. Wasn't that a commercial or something some years ago? Now make sure things are clean, of course, before you do that. But this gives the kinesthetic student something to do with his or her hands. And with the feet too. And that way they're going somewhere, they're doing something. Use something, an object to connect to the lesson. So everybody can touch it. But again, make sure it's clean too. Yeah. Any questions on this before I go on? All right. What about the logical learner? What would you do with him or her? How could you help them learn?
Give them a quiz.
Give them what?
Quiz.
Quiz. Okay. It would scare the relational learner, but it'll be good for the logical learner. What else? What else? This may be a little bit more difficult. So.
Yeah.
What would it be? A puzzle. Yeah. Yep. Yep.
I don't know what it was to because they think of it.
A debate. Yeah, you could. Yeah.
Get more answers.
Yeah. You set up a special time for a debate on a specific topic that you're going to be covering. Say, this is going to be coming up. And of course, the logical learners will be like, Let me study and let me get ready for that. Here's some things to do. Yep, sorry.
I was gonna say, start maybe with a question.
Start with a question.
Giving all the information.
Yep, start with a question, absolutely. Encourage learning for a logical learner by maintaining order in the classroom. Chaos does not go well with a logical learner. When kids or adults move around a lot, that can be very disturbing to a logical learner. Because they're always like this. It's like cognitive disconnect. It short circuits their thinking. And it can frustrate them too. Explain why and how things will take place. Use games, use puzzles, word search, crossword, activities that involve problem solving. State information in a clear sequential order. Don't go all over the place, because they won't be able to connect with what you're saying. Ask what if in a situation or a question. Open-ended. Ask an obscure question that could require time to answer. What if you were in this situation? What would you do? These materials that encourage the student to base conclusions on facts and critical thinking. If this, then what? Here's a few examples. Let's say your text is David and Goliath. Something we're all familiar with. Jesus doing a miracle. Peter, Paul preaching. Ask, what would you do in that situation? How would you have responded to Goliath? What would you think if you saw Jesus heal that man? If you were there at the resurrection, what would you have thought? Or the ascension? This makes them think, but it also helps make it real to them too. Like the text-based learners, play a Bible detective, where they have to look in the text to find the answers. You can also do a word study. There's a lot of words in the Bible you can do a word study on. Love, there's a lot to that, just one word. Multiple words in Greek for love. Find the meaning of a word. Now, if you're brave, you can have a friendly debate, where two groups discuss a topic, a passage, or a particular doctrine to prove their side is right. You could do that. Okay? Any other thoughts on that?
Following a storyline.
Yeah, a narrative storyline.
Chronological.
Yep. Yep, you could do maybe a summary chronological Bible story. Another way to do that. Okay? Number 6, relational. What would you do or what could you do to teach a relational learner?
Group work.
Group work. What else?
Or even small group discussions. You kind of present a topic or a
Yeah.
concept and then a small group.
Yeah, small group discussions and present the topic or conclusion. What else? What else?
It would also involve skits.
Skits, yeah. A lot of times they do. Yep, presentations, exactly. So encourage class discussions. Ask questions. Plan small group activities. Or a class activity. This could be problem solving or it could just be something for fun. Have the student interview another student. Like a news scenario. Hello, we're here live on the scene. Jonah just got spat out of the whale onto the shore. Jonah, what do you think? Again, use your imagination. And it helps them. Something else you could do is choose some students to act within a scene or have them act out the following week. That way they're prepared for it in the classroom. Anything that connects a student with another student is something helpful for a relational learner. Because their relationships are very important to this individual. Discussion questions, class quizzes, group activities. Now, in a group activity, ask the relational learner to be the leader sometimes. Maybe not always, but sometimes. Often he or she will be a potential leader. And this helps him or her develop those skills too. Pair them up with somebody else. Pose questions for them to talk to each other about. Hopefully they actually get to those questions, while they're not just talking about other things. Then have them summarize what was discussed. Make teamwork a part of the lesson. Encourage interaction, share stories. Divide the students in study groups. Okay, you're over here, you're over here, you're over here. Maybe you could go through a passage and have them explain that to the class. Okay, group A, you guys discussed these verses. Tell me what you learned. Group B, you had these verses. What did you learn? Those kinds of things. Because it's not only discussing the text, which is what we want, but they're learning from each other. And for a relational learner, that's very, very helpful. Any thoughts on this? Any questions on this before we go on? All right. Number 7, reflective. What would you do? What could you do to teach a reflective learner?
Give time for them to process.
Give time for them to process.
Or like the whole class will just say, we're just going to take a couple minutes where you think about like yourself.
Exactly. Think about it. Yes. Yeah, what would you say?
Ask them open-ended questions.
Ask open-ended questions. What else? What else could you do? So, the main thing is, yes, offer quiet time to think about what you're teaching. You're taking 1 or 2 minutes just to reflect on what we just talked about. And give them that time. Now, of course, the relational learner is going to be like, I want to talk. But those who are reflective, okay. Yeah. Open-ended questions. Provide additional materials for them to do on their own. It's another thing you can do. Also helps with text-based learning too. You can also let them choose an activity. Okay, here's a worksheet, here's something else that you can do. What would you like to do on your own? Now make sure, if you do something like this, that you talk to the reflective student. This is something that can be a challenge. If you ignore a reflective student because they're quiet, you may lose them in class. Because usually, as a teacher, you could be drawn to the relational student, the one who's talking all the time. But you forget about the quiet students or student over here who's not interacting as much. So you as a teacher will need to take initiative to connect with that student. So you may need to initiate, because he or she probably won't initiate the conversation. Because they're reflective, they're quiet, and they think about things. Encourage them to write a story about themselves. Work a puzzle, draw, maybe play a game with one other person. And this keeps coming up, give them time to think about what you teach. And then ask him or her specifically, if you've developed a relationship at the end of the class, if he or she has any thoughts. Because the reflective doesn't mean they never talk. They just take time to process what's going through their minds. So maybe again say, we haven't heard from so-and-so in a little bit. What do you think about that? And that gives them an opportunity also to develop relationships too. Also, don't be surprised if the student is shy when it comes to group activities. Some of us may have been in schools where there's a group activity and this friend of ours just didn't really seem to do a good job, and everyone's like, why aren't you doing a good job? Why aren't you joining in the group? Right? But they're kind of shy. Here's a couple other examples. Let's say you're teaching about one of the kings of Israel and Judah. And you teach on how they led the people into idolatry and all this other stuff. Again, you can ask, if you were there, how would you have responded? Would you have followed the crowd? And then just pause. And give them time to think. And then ask them to write about that situation in their own words. Any additional thoughts? All right, last one, natural. What would you do to teach a natural learner?
Have class or part of your activities outside of class.
Have class first, outside.
I don't think necessarily it doesn't have to be like on grass, in a tree,
Right.
Yeah.
In a tree. That'd be interesting. Let's build a tree house.
But I think that just even change of environment.
The change of environment is also helpful too for a lot of people. Yeah.
Let's go to the window, look at the sky.
Yeah, let's go to the window.
Oh, wow, look at that,
Look
look
at the
down.
bird.
Can you see, imagine, see, it looks like a grass, see, something like that.
Yeah, exactly.
I
So remember, natural learners use their five senses.
You can also bring nature into
Exactly. So even though they use their five senses, it's not as much as kinesthetic, but yes,
Yeah, yes,
here's something else you can do, right? If you're talking about a text, highlight creation in that text. Here's some examples. Well, creation is obvious. Noah's flood. Creation's involved. God revealing himself to Elijah. The mountains. The wind. Creation in the Psalms. David picking up 5 stones. You can actually visit the creek where he took those 5 stones from. It's still there today. Bring in some rocks. 5 smooth stones. Jesus' parables about agriculture. A farmer went out to sow seed in a field. Bring in some seed so they can feel it, so they can see it. Good for the kinesthetic learner too. Think about the judgment in the Exodus. A lot of those were nature-based, creation-based. Of course, Revelation as well. A lot of judgments on the earth, water, things like that. Different sciences. Because all of these have an aspect of God's creation to them in some way. You don't want to force it, but it's still there. So connect the Bible to the natural world as is appropriate. And as was mentioned, bring materials, bring rocks, bring, appropriately dirt, sand, leaves, bugs.
I remember I bring my fish.
Bring your fish. Talk about Jonah.
Also ago in the Sunday school, I bring my fish
There you go.
in the classroom.
Yep. We have a cat. I don't know if I want to bring her. This was in the case. Yeah. Flowers. Leavened or unleavened bread. Bring a magnifying glass. Bring scales. Bring other tools. Because again, sometimes a natural learner and the kinesthetic learner learn to do things with their hands. Incorporate as many senses as possible into that lesson. Now, if they make something, use natural materials. Let's make a collage today. Here's some leaves, here's some sticks, here's some this, colored paper. Put it together into some kind of form. You think, well, that's only for kids. No, it's not. And some of you probably are dying to make something in your class. Here's some laughter. So that's a few other things. Now, any other questions before we go on?
You said 5 senses for the natural. Do they taste too? Do they need to taste dirt?
Hopefully they won't taste the dirt. But if you want to bring in some candy or something,
Chocolate is okay.
yes, bring in candy for that part. Yeah. Some real food. Here's a rock. Have a rock. You don't want to do that. Particularly for kids, because they will. Okay, here's a few things to keep in mind. Now, this is just some basic stuff as we start to finish things up. First of all, when it comes to the actual class itself, choose an apprentice teacher or teachers who have a different style of learning than you do. Why is that? Well, try to find somebody different because everything won't be the same. Talk with him, talk with her, and get different ideas about what you can do in class for that week. And it also prepares him or her to take the lead role, whether in that class or another class someday. Go through the lesson together, discuss what can be done for that week. Because when somebody has a different learning style than you do, it challenges you and them to think differently. You may have some ideas they didn't think about. They may have some ideas you didn't think about. And you end up improving the class. Second, don't try to incorporate every style each week. Don't do that. You will drive yourself insane. You will drive your students insane. It's not possible. Choose 2 or 3 at the most per week. Yours, 1, maybe 2 others. Maybe you're comfortable with one, and another requires more effort. They all do. That's just the way it is. So if you want to challenge yourself, 2 or 3 that are different than yours. Maybe you're a logical learner. Do something visual. Do something auditory that week. Do something natural. That means more work. Well, yeah, but do you want to reach your students and teach them for God's glory? This way, every few weeks, you're hitting all 8 styles. And it helps mix things up, and it helps get things creative in you and in the class. And it also helps you connect each student too. Next, your natural learning style can become your enemy. Because your class gets used to it. And sooner or later, they will tune you out. So use your style, yes, use your personality, but this is also another reason to add things, to mix things up, to change it, so you keep the attention of your students. This also helps students try new things, by the way. Number 4, take time to try new things. It takes effort, it takes time, yes, but do things differently. Some people sit down, some people stand up, some people do both. Give yourself extra time to prepare the lessons if you are going to do some different things. Particularly when you start, don't rush into something. You don't force a style that doesn't go with the lesson for that week. Okay? Let's say you're talking about Elijah on Mount Carmel with the prophets of Baal. Don't bring fire into the classroom. yeah. That'll be so cool. No. Don't do that. Don't do that. Also, too, and something else you could do, particularly if there's some godly adults in the class, ask some of the students to create an activity or something like that. Even the kids sometimes, too. Inside or outside the class, have others take the lead in something other than teaching. And last, number 5, have fun. Have fun. Laugh. Tell stories. Discuss. Ask and answer questions. Yes, there are times to be serious. But I don't believe learning should be boring. Reward your students. If you're in the class I taught a few weeks ago, what did I have?
Chocolate.
Chocolate.
I remember you.
Yeah. And sometimes I threw it out. Sometimes I just handed it at the end. It just depends. Reward your students. A small gift, verbal praise, check marks on a board. Little things like that can really mean a lot, even for adults too, by the way. Think outside the box when it comes to utilizing these styles. So as we finish up, I hope this has been helpful. I hope it's been an encouragement. And I hope you learned something about yourself and also something about teaching. And again, this does not have to be in a Sunday school classroom setting. Remember that the people you talk with on a daily basis think differently than you do. If you work with kids, they think differently than you do. They learn differently than you do. This will not only help you in the classroom, but your life, your work, your everyday activities, and particularly useful. Again, if you do any kind of teaching, or if you do want to teach in the future. And if you're a parent or grandparent or both, this is helpful too. Or if you want to become a parent in the future, this is also helpful. So take these concepts, ask God how you can incorporate them into your class and into your life. Any other questions? Any other thoughts? Okay, yeah.
Okay, if I photocopy this.
Yeah, that's why I've got extra up here. Take these, take the blank copies, photocopy them, use them in your classroom, use them for your family, use them for your friends, use them for your spouse.
I thought that it's helpful that it covers every style. So I'm wondering if the other curriculum is the same.
Some to a point. Yeah, the kids has a lot more because there are a lot more variety, and a lot more hands-on stuff. Any other thoughts or questions? Any other thoughts or questions before I finish up? Okay, also real quick too, I just want to mention, there is the, as you heard today, the parenting seminar coming up.
Any
Yeah,
candy?
Yes. Any candy? Oh. Think about that.
Kit
I'll
Kat.
talk to Dr. Nichols about that, so if you're interested in doing that. So if you're interested in that, here's some flyers up here for that. I am still working on the location. There's 2 possible locations, this being one of them right here in the room. So if you have questions about that, you can ask me. And then again, grab 1 or 2 of these on the way out for your class, for your family, for your friends, and have fun with them too. All right, let's finish up. And we'll finish up there, and you guys can head on out. Thank you for your time, by the way. I really do appreciate that, as always. Next month, we will be doing a teacher training, and that's going to be on classroom management. For kids and for adults. So not just, because we just think, oh, kids, adults too. So all of the above. And I may be asking you, some of you, to incorporate some of your wisdom into the class too. So let's pray. Gracious Father, we thank you for today. Thank you for this time. And thank you, Lord, for helping us learn about the learning styles.